When strong isn't safe, how Black women heal from chronic stress. If you are a Black woman and you are in a work environment, you are probably overworking. And the thing about it is that you're probably overworking to the point that you don't even know that you are experiencing burnout. If this is you and you feel that you are just working, 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 you need to watch this conversation because we're going to talk about burnout and chronic stress. So if you don't know me already, I'm Dr. Kamani. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I've been licensed for over 20 years. I'm also a toxic job survivor, but more importantly, I'm a toxic job liberator for Black women. I'm also the co-founder with Marissa Price of the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black women. If you would like to access the replay of the virtual summit, that is available in the description section of this video. Also, if you would like to know or get on the waiting list for the 2026 Job Liberation Virtual Summit, that is also in the description section of this video. I'm so excited to have my Spelman sister here with us today. So we have Camesha Jones-Brandon here with us today. So Camesha, can you please introduce yourself?
Thank you, Dr. Kamani, for having me on this live today. So I'm Camesha Jones-Brandon. My background is a licensed clinical social worker. I am a burnout recovery coach, and I decided to get into this work because burnout almost knocked me out. And I saw it was knocking a lot of other Black women out in terms of just not being able to experience joy, and then just really struggling on a day-to-day basis because of the systemic, but also the things that were happening in their families, in their communities, in their workplace that was just causing so much stress. So I'm happy to be here today to kind of talk more about that and how you can get support.
So I think for a lot of us, we say, girl, how you doing? Girl, I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired. And we just always say that. So can we talk a little bit about how does it look for us as Black women, the issue of burnout, right? And how do we not normalize just being so tired and overworked all the time? So let's talk about that because I think what's happening is that we're just normalizing being exhausted all the time.
Yeah, you bringing that up in terms of like exhaustion is like the norm of Black women's experiences, to the point that we can be raised to believe that that is how life is going to be. And then when we try to pull ourselves out of it, it can be difficult because the norm has been the exhaustion, just taking on so much or having so much put on you. So what does it look like for Black women? I would say one, the emotional and the physical aspects of burnout is kind of what I see come out first in terms of changes. Our body systems are our alarm clocks. So, when you start to have headaches, trouble sleeping, gastrointestinal issues, all those different like physical ailments or just your body getting frequently sick, that can be another physical sign of just like burnout and exhaustion. But even before that, some of the emotional parts of it that I see show up for Black women is just not being able to tap into joy, feeling apathetic about life, or having this feeling like I'm just going I'm just going with emotions, getting by, like they're doing all the things, they are high functioning, but in the midst of it, they are really, really struggling as they're doing all the things. And I think that's one of the aspects of why people might not even think to consider Black women's well-being, because we're still performing. So we're still performing at home, we're still performing at work in our communities, but underneath it all, there is this slow deterioration happening.
Yeah, I had Dr. Buchanan on yesterday, who's a Black woman medical doctor. So if you didn't see that video yesterday, you need to watch that. But she talked about weathering, right? So we go through so much chronic stress that it causes our organs to age at a faster rate, and we're getting very sick as Black women. So it's very important for us to be very mindful of chronic stress. And what's so disturbing to me about this is that when we think about chronic stress, and not only the impact on our physical health, but also our mental health, and the part about it that you said about, disconnect from joy and not even feeling like we're worthy of joy, or not even remembering what even brings us joy. I have a lot of, well, I would say the majority of my clients are Black women. And when I ask them, what brings you joy? It's like this deer in the headlights, like, what? Like, what did you just say? Well, what brings you joy? I don't know. And it's a total disconnect. And I think we've been sold a lie that as Black women that we just work, 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 that we're the superwoman, we're every superwoman for everybody, but that we don't deserve joy, or that we don't, or that if you have bills to pay and you pay bills, that you don't deserve joy. Like you can't pay bills and still have joy, right? And I think we've been fed this lie. Can we dispel that? That, yeah, we can still pay bills and that we still deserve joy? Because I feel like that really does not honor our humanity as Black women, that we deserve joy.
Absolutely. We deserve to be more than a workhorse.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of the stereotypes and stigmas all the way back from slavery until now are still affecting how we see ourselves, but also our deservingness. So if we think about Zora Neale Hurston, in her book, she says, as far as I can see, the Black woman is the mule of the world, right? Yeah. We're looking at her as an anthropologist, being able to identify that is how Black women were seen when we think about the mammy stereotype of just gleefully doing for other people at your own expense. Right. And then, of course, the strong Black women, which we're talking about right now, as having to persevere through all these obstacles, but not being considered in terms of our humanity. So I think the joy gets us back in touch with our humanity and not this image of producing and doing for others that is so prevalent.
Right. And always self-sacrificing, that we're always to do for other people, and never, never, ever to think about ourselves. And to think about ourselves is to be selfish. And I think we need to dispel that as well, right? That it's nothing that to think about ourselves, we have to think about self-preservation, right? And sometimes when we think about self-preservation, there's this notion of, oh, you're being selfish. And again, we have to think about who is saying that. Like, what's the source of the data? And who is saying that, and to whose benefit, right? Many times people say that so they can get something more out of us in terms of the workhorse. So we have to think about who is benefiting from saying that. And also when you think about, just over the years as Black women, how we have worked and worked and worked and worked. And it's almost like within our community that there's almost a sense of, well, we're all tired, right? And so, yeah, we are all tired. But my hope is that as we're looking at what's happened politically and how Black women have, right? And now like the 92% are like, we're resting. Right. We're resting. Right. We tried to tell you all didn't listen. And now we're resting. So, Camesha, I'm wondering, before we start going into ways that you support Black women, can you talk a little bit for you? How did you recognize the signs that I think I'm like headed to like burnout? Like, what were the signs that you were experiencing? I think that will be helpful for the audience to also maybe relate to.
Yeah. Well, I will say I think my first time, now that I look back on it, where I was experienced burnout was actually when I was in undergrad at Spelman. I started to really see this cycle that was happening. It was my best friend, Chappelle, who also Spelman's sister, who called it out to me. He was like, Camesha, you're working and you're at school and you get home and the first thing you do is you do work. You don't take a time to rest and take a step back, because I thought I had to work so hard, you know, to be able to get to this destination that I wanted to be. But I saw all these signs around me that I wasn't well. My hair was starting to thin and fall out. I had a lot of facial acne. I was losing weight. Like there were all these physical signs that I was not okay. But in my mind, I had fixated that, okay, if I just get to the next thing, if I just push through, then everything will be okay. And I think that's a common challenge that Black women experience is they're like, if I can just get to, so it's like that little bit of hope, but really that hope, it kind of keeps you in that cycle.
Right.
Of
Like a
burnout.
hamster wheel.
Yes, exactly. So it was the physical and it was emotional too. I was a little bit more snappy, you know, didn't feel dreaded getting out of the bed, didn't feel good. You know, I just had to do what I needed to do. But that was the first, I think, time as an adult that I realized I was in burnout, where stress is more temporary. It may be a couple days, it may be a week. But that chronic stress of going through that cycle for years, you know, is what chronic stress is. It's the prolonged stress over a long period of time. And, you know, there were a series of events that helped me to get out of it. And I experienced times of stress, but it's not like just completely burnt out. I have not felt that in quite some time. Thank God.
Okay.
But it had to do with recognizing the signs, knowing things that I was putting on myself, that I was imposing these things and I didn't have to operate that way. But you get all these messages as Black women that you have to do things a certain way. And so I had to break that and get in touch with what I knew, you know, like how life could be more harmonious and more peaceful for me.
And I think that happens many times too when we're high achieving Black women, right? That we get these messages that we have to be a certain way. And then we feel like, right, like, oh, if I could just do this one thing, if I could just get this, if I could just get that, then we feel like, oh, I'll take a break when this, or I'll take a break when I get this promotion, or I'll take this break when this happens. But it never stops. It never stops. Yeah. Can you hold on 1 second? Hold on a second. Sorry. Sorry, I have some background noise. Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second, guys. I'm sorry, I have some background noise. Hold on. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Hold on. I'm sorry about that. Okay. So, when we think about burnout and everything, right? You talked about what you went through. You talked about, you know, recognizing like this is problematic, right? So when I think about, so once you recognize that, right? How did you get to the point of getting to the point of, okay, I've gone there before, I'm not going to get there again. So how did you kind of, I guess, like burnout recovery? What did that look like for you?
Oh, it was the small, everyday wellness rituals that got me out of it. That was the main thing that has kept me in a place of, I would just say, alignment and balance. And it's something, you know, we're told all the time, self-care, but like that is what literally kept me on track. There's one part of it of getting pulled out of it, of changing these standards and expectations that were not realistic or sustainable. That was a huge mental thing for me. And it still can sometimes be a challenge because I am high achieving. And, you know, I have to like dial dial back some of my expectations or standards because they're not sustainable or realistic, period. So that was like the mental shift that I needed to make. And then emotionally, whenever I like see myself getting to a place of like irritation or frustration or something like that, then I kind of, it's the signal that, oh, okay, something's happening because, you know, you're getting into like that space. But for me, the daily ritual. So I went on a sabbatical in 2023. And Pilar Udain, she created a self-care sabbatical for women of color who are nonprofit leaders. And I applied to the grant. She accepted me and she paid for me to go on a month sabbatical. And so, yeah, very nice, very nice. I actually saw Pilar today, so shout out to her. But it gave me permission to stop that cycle because a part of the sabbatical was you have to delegate to your team because you're stepping away. You cannot do it all. So you have to make a plan for that. But beyond that, the things that I learned, not just from taking the sabbatical, but it was 6 to 9 months of like learning how to take care of myself differently as a Black woman and to know that it was okay for me to rest and that the world still goes on, the impact can still be made while I'm resting and having a joyous life. Like it's possible.
Right. Things can still go on and you can still delegate, right? Like you don't have to take care of everything. And things are going to be okay. Right. So, right. And I think part of the problem too is, you know, we've been told about the strong Black woman. And, you know, sometimes we are told, oh, you're so strong. You know, I could never do that, you know, and so on some level, we don't really have an option as Black women not to be strong. Right? We have to be strong. So on the one hand, it's that. But on the other hand, how do we as Black women give ourselves permission to say, yeah, in some spaces, I don't have an option not to be strong, right? But in other spaces, how do we give ourselves permission to engage in these small wellness rituals? How do we give ourselves those permission? Because people will always have the expectation that we are the strong Black woman and they will push and push and push and push. So how do we give ourselves permission to say, I'm not always going to be the strong Black woman. There are going to be spaces and times that I need to put the cape down. I need to do things to really be mindful of myself. How do we give ourselves permission to do that?
Very good question. I think it's a mix between strength and vulnerability. Dr. Inger Burnett Ziegler, I don't know if you've heard of her book, but yeah, Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen. And I loved in her book how she talked about the what Black women are juggling, that space. We need that space to be vulnerable, but we also have this reality of times where we do have to be strong. But I would even reframe that strength is vulnerability, because if you are able to say, I need help, I don't have it, that is strength, because that's courage to be vulnerable. So I think there's a part of redefining strength to not mean pushing and powering through, but being courageous to be vulnerable and to be honest and to have those people who you can do that with. And so that's where I think that vulnerability and to say, I don't have to be the strong Black woman, are those people, those places, those communities where you can do that and be truly cared for. The other part of it is the strength piece. Like, we face obstacles all the time, you know, and there is this woman named Quinn. She's a poet. She's from Chicago. She lives in, I think, LA now, but she has this poem about Black girl magic. And she talks about how everybody likes, you know, what I do. I can do the impossible. I can break barriers. I can do all these things. But this is what I'm really dealing with. As you see all these things going on, this is what I'm really dealing with inside. And Black girl magic is just not, it's a empowering thing, but it also can remind us that we're not indestructible, you
Right.
know? So yeah, I think that there's a balance between strength and vulnerability, and deciding what you want to be strong about. You know, what do you want to, what is okay for you to operate in strength? And then what are some things that you want to lean more into vulnerability? So you can decide that. Sometimes we think we can't decide it, but you can. And you can always scale back. You know, you can show up, but maybe not show up in the same way. You know, so there's modifications that I think Black women can make that they may not even realize they have the power to do.
And I think that's important when we think about, like, let's say in work settings, when we think about vulnerability, and we also think about issues of identity, right? So when we think about burnout, and I think about how some Black women may be more at risk for burnout, and we could talk about this, they may be more at risk for burnout if they may be over-identify with their job, in the sense that their identity becomes fused with their job title, right? So you meet them and they're talking about their job all the time, their job title, and, you know, they become like, you know, they become the job basically, right? So they think about the job, they only talk about the job, right? They don't really go on vacation, they don't use their PTO. So what are your thoughts about that in terms of, if a Black woman's identity becomes fused in some ways with her job, is she in some ways at higher risk for burnout? And what are some things that maybe she can do if she may be watching this right now? She's like, oh, that's me. What are some things maybe she can do?
I will say that the challenge is that as young girls, the focus of our power is on education and career. So our parents from young ages do well in school, get a job, go to college, right? That becomes what takes up so much of your time and space from the time you're a little girl. You carry that all the way through college, graduate school, whatever professional endeavors you have. And so when to some extent you may be raised with that focus, you might not even know who you are outside of that, because all the validation, all the experiences that you have had that you may see as like beneficial or a part of your esteem are relating to what you produce through career and education. And so I think the other aspect is that we're not taught how to do it healthily from little girl. I mean, I can remember, and I'm not the only Black girl, so I'm not saying I like speaking for all Black girls, but how can we have a career and do it healthily and have a whole life outside of it and it not become our full identity? And so I think that we have to put more emphasis on nurturing who we are outside of our career identity.
I agree.
I mean, what we've accomplished, what we've worked for is important. But at the end of the day, when people are on their deathbeds, it's not about, man, I wish I would have worked more. It's like, man, I wish I would have spent more time with so-and-so. I wish I would have traveled the world. I wish I would have taken that risk. And so if you think about, not to be morbid, if you were to pass tomorrow, and if what would you have wanted to accomplish throughout your whole life? And is work just the center of that? I mean, for some people it may be, but I think that God has placed us on this earth to be more than work.
I agree. You raised up a really good point, because I just think about, like, when we're growing up, people say, and we ask this for girls and boys, right? What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? And so kids are thinking about professions, but we don't really ask about anything else. We don't ask about interests or anything. What do you want to be when you grow up? As if that's the totality of what they be. And what's so interesting, my dear friend Colette Elizabeth is here, and Marissa. Hey, Marissa. Hey, Colette. So I remember something that Colette said, and she said that if people ask her, what do you do for a living? She said that she's going to start saying, I live. And I thought that was beautiful. I thought that was beautiful because people seem to define our lives in terms of our profession, right? And so I just hope that we just start shifting a little bit, right? It's important to know what maybe people do, but I think that that's taken like too much importance in how we interact with one another. So, Camesha, can you share some of the ways? Yes, the Harriet's in the house. That's right. So, can you share what are some of the ways that you help Black women in relation to burnout? I know that you recently became a burnout recovery coach. First of all, what is that? What is a burnout recovery coach? Let's start there. Okay. What is a burnout recovery coach?
So a burnout recovery coach, I focus on the root causes of burnout. How can we interrupt some of the cycle and the patterns and practices that are leading to it, and introduce and help you to recover, but also to introduce a new way of living and being where burnout is not ever present in your life. So that's how I would define a burnout recovery coach.
So you help them so that burnout is not a factor anymore in their lives?
It's not taking up like so much space.
Okay.
So it's like interruption of the cycle. What can we do to intervene and provide you with a new way of approaching and living life so that burnout is not, you're not in constant cycles of burnout. So I really, my goal is beyond the recovery is for you to in some ways recover the life that you really want to have. Like, how can I get that back? You know, I'm recovering from the burnout, but also I need to recover my life. I need to take it back so that it's not being consumed by just stress, overwhelm, and exhaustion on a regular basis.
I think what you said can really give hope to a lot of Black women who might be in burnout right now, or maybe they don't even have a word for what they're experiencing, but they're like, I just don't feel good in my current situation. So what words of wisdom can you give to maybe a Black woman who's watching right now and she is just maybe depleted and maybe she's like, I think I'm experiencing burnout. What words of wisdom can you offer to her?
I would tell her that it's not your fault. I would start there. And the reason why I say that is because we are told so often that the reason that we are in burnout is because of something that we're doing wrong, right? But there's all these factors, all these systems at play that impact why Black women have such high rates of chronic stress to begin with, right? So also I would tell her that there is a possibility of a different life for you. It may not feel like that in the moment, but there are small steps that you can take to get you to the destination of the life that you want to have. I would also tell her that you can interrupt the generational cycles of burnout within your lineage. So for me, I come from a lineage. I love my mom. I love my aunt. I love my grandma, but there's some stressed out women. And they demonstrated to me what it looked like. They normalized stress and overwhelm and exhaustion. And so for me and my sister, oh, she's so relaxed. Oh my God. You'd be like, are you worried about anything? We have been the ones who have interrupted that cycle. And not saying that it's our responsibility to break generational patterns, but there is so much power in doing that, not just for yourself, but for any Black woman that may be around you or that you may influence in the future. So there is power in recovering from burnout, not just for you individually, but for others around you.
That was powerful. That was powerful because I think a lot of us have seen our family members or the women in our family overwork and be overstressed and feel like that's just how we have to live too, right? But I think some of us have said, yeah, no, like there has to be another way. And knowing that there is another way. It doesn't have to be that way. Even if that's the way they lived, it doesn't have to be that way.
Mm-hmm. It's like creating a new norm, like how, over the last couple of years, Black women have been talking about boundaries. They've been talking about rest. They've been talking about self-care. We are literally co-creating a new norm of wellness for Black women.
Agreed.
That's what we're doing.
Agreed.
With your platform, Black Women in Toxic Jobs, with Marissa Price, with Trisha Hersey, with Nedra Tawwab, with Joy Hart and Bradford. We are in real time of co-creating a new norm of well-being for Black women. We're in the midst of it. We doing it. So
true.
Yeah.
I agree. So I just think about Spellman motto, right? So we're making a way out of a no way, and we're making a choice to change the world. And so we think about, just as Black women, I just think about all the Black women who've lost their jobs. And I think we're up to like more than 400,000 at this point. And that, not to discount at all, what has happened. Yet I know that as Black women that we know how to pivot. And that I know that out of this situation that we will rise, and that out of the situation, I think what's important for us to remember is that we're going to need to find creative ways to navigate through this system, right? We're going to have to find new ways to navigate out of this craziness that we're dealing with right now. But I have hope because I know that we've navigated before. And so, yes, I think that we're entering a new era, a new experience as Black people, as Black women. And so I do have that hope. So, Camesha, I love what you're saying in terms of, giving Black women, a sense of hope that it doesn't have to continue to be this way. Even if you're experiencing burnout right now, we can change the trajectory. It doesn't have to stay this way, right? So, are we saying that even if a Black woman is like in a toxic job, experiencing burnout, that working with you can help her in that regard?
I would say yes, absolutely. One of the things that I focus on in burnout recovery is work-life alignment. So work-life alignment is about knowing what matters most to you, knowing your values that are true across all parts of your life, and how can you craft your life that embraces those values. And so for me, if someone is dealing with a toxic job, we're going to talk about, okay, tell me more about what your first aspirations were with your career. How did you even come up with wanting to do this? Like getting in touch with what matters to you, and how can we support you to move into a direction that honors your values, whatever those may be. And so that's what I really love about work-life alignment versus work-life balance. Like work-life balance is pretty much like, I got my work over here, I got my life over here, and I'm keeping them separate. I'm time blocking for separation. But it's like work-life alignment is about harmony. It's like, how does it all fit together? How does it all fit together?
Yes. It's so funny you mentioned that because on Sunday, the live is going to be about alignment and jobs. It's so funny you said that. And I'm interviewing another Spellman sister. Timing, yes. So it's so funny you said that. Yes. So can you talk a little bit about who are the clients who can most benefit from working with you? Who might be the ideal clients that you work with?
Ideal clients. So I would say definitely, I work with all women and work with Black women, of course. I'm a Black woman, so
yes,
priority. But so I would say women who are, I would say maybe early to mid career, I would say would be an ideal group who are kind of trying to navigate the season that they're in right now, whether personally or also professionally, but are also in the midst of burnout as they're trying to figure that out. Like this week, I had a couple of consultations and they were nonprofit leaders. And I have a lot of experience in the nonprofit space. So people who maybe are doing social impact work where they're giving, serving, supporting others, but also people who are looking to pivot and need a thought partner to help to think through, okay, for example, I was just laid off from my job and I want to figure out where I want to go next, but also to not be in the same toxicity or cycles that I was in at my previous position.
Yeah.
I will also say women who I would say are overburdened. So women who are juggling a lot of different roles, responsibilities, and demands, and really need support in terms of how to sift through it all. So there are like 3 things that I really focus on in my approach. The first is prioritizing what matters most according to your values, according to where you are at in this season in your life, helping to expand your support system. Support system isn't always people. It can be resources. It can be expansive. And one of the areas that I see women struggle with, but especially Black women, is not feeling supported. And I feel like that's a key area to really focus on in coaching. And then the last part is really about building those wellness strategies that that can sustain you through multiple seasons of your life. We know that stress is not unavoidable. I will never say you're going to live a stress-free life. That's not realistic or true.
Okay. Right.
But it's about having the protective resources and the tools that help to get you through those seasons with resilience, but also well-being as much as you can, as much as you can. So,
yes.
So yeah, I would say those are like probably the demographic that would probably benefit most from the coaching that I provide, and especially people helping professions as well. Yeah.
Okay. And I agree with what Marissa said. Support systems are not always people. I agree with that. Yes. And you know what? I also agree with what you said about the importance of really looking at when you're in a toxic job or you maybe just left a toxic job, to really investigate or explore what was going on at that toxic job so you don't go to another toxic job, right? Because that is highly likely that if you don't look at the signs that were at the other toxic job, and so you will be more likely to go into another toxic job, even though we know that Black women have a high likelihood of going to multiple toxic jobs because of racism, sexism, and all kind of stuff, right? We already know that. But we also know that you have to, excuse me, pay attention to what are some red flags that sometimes we miss, right? I'm not talking about the racism, sexism. I'm talking about other red flags that sometimes we miss because we're trying to hurry up and get out of this toxic job. Like, I can't take it anymore. I'm just trying to get out of here. So the hope is that maybe by working with Coach Camesha, that if you're in a toxic job or you just left one, you'll be able to say, this is what was happening at that job, and talking to Coach Camesha and talking about, hey, oh, yeah, if I see it at the next job, this is not something I want to sign up for at the next place, right? So Coach Camesha, can you please share how someone can work with you? What would they do if they want to work with you?
If you would like to work with me, you can go to my website, cameshajones.com/coaching. I offer a free 20-minute video discovery call. So in that call, I'll be able to learn more from you about what you need in terms of support with coaching. You'll be able to learn more about me, my approach, and if it's a match, we move forward. So it's pretty easy right now. I have openings, and as I shared, I have a limited amount of openings for people who need free coaching, especially right now. I know a lot of Black women are struggling, economically because of the job loss, because of the current environment that we're in, socio-politically. So I do have some slots available if someone would like to work with me and can't afford to pay my normal rate. And yeah, it's that easy. But discovery call, we go over everything. If it looks good on your end, looks good on my end, then we move forward and we could get started, within a week. So it's pretty quick.
Did I get it right? CameshaJones.com/coaching?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay. So because you are also a therapist, can we distinguish coaching from therapy? Because I don't want people contacting you and they're like, I think I need therapy. So can we distinguish the two, please?
Yes, absolutely. And this is something that I go over in my discovery call, is the difference. Even though I have a background in mental health and I provide therapy, coaching, I'm not necessarily using those tools in coaching. So therapy, in some regards, is more about diagnosing mental health conditions. It's about maybe processing particular events from the past, and maybe some of focused on the present. So it's really about, therapy is about working on like your mental health specifically, and dealing with some of those aspects of past and then present challenges. Where coaching, I'm more so focusing on life fulfillment and personal growth, but also well-being. So I am focusing on what you're going through in the present, and then how can we work together to get you to where you would like to be in the future. And so it's more motivational. I'm not saying therapists aren't motivational, but it's definitely more of an accountability partner in a different way than I think therapists typically operate. And yeah, it's usually a shorter, time in coaching and therapy. So yeah, I don't know if that explained it well enough. Okay.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that we were clear, because I know that you are licensed. I didn't want people to be like, oh, she's also a therapist. Let me try to get some therapy in too, right? Because sometimes the boundary can be blurred sometimes, and people sometimes are confused because they think it's the same thing, and it's not, right? So I just wanted to make sure people were clear about what the differences were. So Camesha, as we're winding down, any last words you want to share with the community before we wind down today?
Yeah, well, thank you, Dr. Kamani, for having me. I feel like the last couple of years we have just been supporting each other. So I appreciate the community that you've built, and just how much you care for and create community and support other Black women. I will leave with just some final remarks in terms of, if you are struggling with burnout, the sooner you get help, the better. As someone who's gone through it personally, I always think about, man, if I would have got help sooner, my life would have maybe been a little bit different. So I really encourage people to always take action as soon as possible. If you're experiencing burnout, I will also say that right now we are in extremely stressful times.
Ooh, girl.
Extremely.
That's an understatement. Yes.
Yeah, we are in extremely stressful times, and having support through coaching or therapy or other resources is vital right now, because what they're trying to do right now is to break us.
Yes, they are.
I mean, I don't know how to say it any other way.
Yeah.
And so that is when we really need to lean into community and well-being and support to keep our spirits up, to keep our mental up, to keep our emotions up, to keep us physically as we're going through this. So I just want to normalize that we are in very stressful times. And so this is why this type of support is really important. And then lastly, like I said, Black women, we deserve something different. Absolutely. And I believe that we are in the midst. I feel like we're in a wellness renaissance. I don't know if anybody's ever said that, But I think we're in a wellness renaissance as Black women. And even though things are difficult right now, I believe that things are just going to be incredible for us, our well-being in the future. I really do. Like, just to see how far well-being has come in the last 10 years, man, like what would it be like 25 years from now? Like, I'm excited about that. So that's like my little bit of optimism and hope. But I believe that like we're getting the tools that our ancestors needed, you know, like we're getting them now. And I think our future is we're gonna have a well future. I believe it. Yeah.
I co-sign with everything you just said, and I just feel that they're definitely trying very hard to break us, but they will not. And the thing that I was thinking about as you were talking is that, you know, when you talked about wellness, I view it as our wellness and our ability to be well, stay well is a sign of our resistance, right? Because they're trying so hard to not only take food away from us, but they're also trying to break our spirits, our sense of hope, our mental health, the anxiety, the exhaustion, the depression. Like they're trying to break us on so many different levels. And for us to stay well, despite all of this, that is a sign of our resistance, right? No, you're not going to break us, right? You're trying really hard, but you will not break us. We're going to be well, even though you're going to try so hard to try to break us, right? And I just think about how through all of this, and this is what I pray for. This is what I pray for us individually and collectively, that we come out of this and we experience post-traumatic growth, right? That out of this, right, that Black women are recognizing certain things about us, that we are recognizing chronic stress, that we're recognizing burnout, that we're recognizing the need to get support and we get the support, that we recognize toxic jobs and we get the support and get out. We plan to get out, that we recognize these things and we experience trauma, but because of the trauma, we become so much more enlightened and so much more informed. And we recognize that we have options that our ancestors did not have, that our ancestors went through all that they did to provide these options for us, and that we have agency. They did not in many ways, but we have agency and we have options. So I pray that we understand that and we remember that, even though these are some crazy times and it can feel very overwhelming, it can feel very defeatist, right? But we have to remember that because they are trying to break us and they don't want us to have a sense of hope, but they cannot. They cannot. Now, they will win if we start feeling that sense of being defeated. That is how they will win, right? They will win if we are not well, right? If we are turning against one another, if we are undermining one another, if it's all skinfolk and kinfolk, like that is how they're winning. That's how they're winning. So I hope Black women, as you are watching this, that you remember that our wellness is our resistance, and that you know that we have options as Black people, as Black women, that we know as Black people, as Black women, that we have always found a way and that we will continue to find a way, and that there's resources available for us, okay? So Coach Camesha has resources. I have resources. That information is in the YouTube description section, okay? So as you are watching this video, please give this video a thumbs up. Please share this video with at least 2 other Black women. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so. It is completely free. Free, okay? Also, if you haven't turned the notification bell, please do so. And I will see you all on Sunday when we talk about misalignment with a job with another one of my Spelman sisters. Okay, so thank you again, Camesha, for being my guest. Thank you, everyone, and I hope everyone has a good evening, and I will see you on Sunday. Take care, everyone. Bye.